My name is Rachel Bennett, and I'm 28 years old. The moment I pressed my lips to my father's cold forehead in St. Mary's Hospital, I thought I was saying goodbye forever. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer had destroyed the man who raised me alone after Mom died. The construction worker who used to carry me on his shoulders was now just a hollow shell, tubes snaking from his arms, machines counting down his final hours. "I love you, Dad," I whispered, my voice cracking. He didn't respond. Hadn't responded in 3 days. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only proof he was still fighting that I made it halfway down the corridor before my world shattered. "Rachel! Rachel Bennett, stop!" Dr. Morrison's voice cut through the antiseptic air with an urgency that froze my blood. I spun around to see him sprinting toward me, his normally composed face drained of all color. He clutched a manila folder against his chest like it contained state secrets. "You need to see this." He was panting, shoving lab results into my trembling hands. "Your father's toxicology report just came back." His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "Rachel, he's been poisoned. Systematically. For months, the fluorescent lights overhead suddenly felt too bright, too harsh." "What? That's impossible." "He was diagnosed. The cancer's real," Dr. Morrison interrupted, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "But someone's been accelerating it. Arsenic. Small doses over an extended period. Just enough to mask as worsening cancer symptoms." He glanced down the empty hallway, then back at me. Who had access to his food and medication? The question hit me like a physical blow, because I knew exactly who had accessed and why mind was racing faster than my heart. Kyle, my fiancé of 2 years. The man who'd held me while I cried about Dad's diagnosis. The man who'd insisted on moving in to help, who'd taken over Dad's care so I could focus on work. The man who'd been slowly killing him. Doctor Morrison, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. "I need you to do something for me. Don't call the police yet." His eyes widened. "Rachel, this is attempted murder. We have to 48 hours. I gripped his arm. "I'm an attorney. I know how these cases work. If we call the police now, they'll arrest Kyle, but we might not have enough evidence to prove conspiracy. I need to secure proof first. Protect myself legally." He looked uncomfortable, glancing back toward Dad's room. "I don't know if I can. You can keep Dad stable for another 2 days, right? Tell everyone you're running additional tests. Keep him in the induced coma for his protection." I pulled out my phone, already thinking 3 steps ahead. "Meanwhile, I gather everything we need to bury them." Doctor Morrison studied my face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him. 48 hours. Not a minute more. "And Rachel." His voice dropped. "Be careful. These people have already shown they're willing to kill." I was already walking toward the elevator, my heels clicking against the linoleum with purpose. Careful wasn't going to cut it. I needed to be smart, calculated, cold. The apartment Kyle and I shared was in Lincoln Park, a renovated brownstone we'd moved into last year. I'd paid the down payment with my signing bonus from the firm. Kyle had contributed exactly nothing, claiming his consulting business was between major contracts. Another lie I'd swallowed without question. That I unlocked the door at 9:47 p.m. The place was dark, empty. Kyle's text said he was in Denver for a week. Perfect. I started in our bedroom, methodically searching through his dresser drawers. Socks, underwear, the Rolex I'd bought him for his birthday. Nothing unusual until my fingers brushed against something hard and rectangular taped to the back of the bottom drawer. A burner phone. Damn, why hands shook as I powered it on. No password. Arrogant or stupid, maybe both. The text history loaded, and my stomach turned to ice point. 8 months of messages between Kyle and Diana. 8 months. That meant they'd been planning this before Dad was even diagnosed. Kyle, target confirmed. Thomas Bennett, retired construction, good pension, property in Hyde Park. Daughter's an attorney. Works constantly. Should be easy, Diana. Perfect. I'll handle the documentation. You handle the daughter. Make her trust you. Kyle. Already on it. She's lonely, career-focused. Classic setup that I had to sit down on the bed. The room was spinning. Diana. Phase 1 complete. He's sick. Doctor confirmed stage 4. Now we accelerate. Kyle. Arsenic doses working perfectly. Mixed in with his medications. Rachel has no clue, Diana. Well, changed. Ready for phase 2. You sure she won't suspect? Kyle. She's too busy working to notice anything. Trusts me completely. This is going to be easier than the last 3. The last 3 that they'd done this before, that I scrolled further back, finding references to names I didn't recognize. Robert Chin in Boston. Michael Torres in Philadelphia. James Liu in Seattle. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Seduce the daughter or son. Poison the father. Forge inheritance documents. Disappear with the money. Why father was just another mark. And I was just another fool who'd fallen for Kyle's act. I took photos of every single message. Then I opened his laptop password, helpfully saved in the browser, and found his email. There, buried in a folder labeled Consulting Projects, was everything. Bank statements showing Kyle owed $200,000 to someone named Dmitry Volkov. A threatening email. Pay up or we collect in other ways. Diana's response to that email. I have a solution. Partnership opportunity. 50-50 split. An invoice from a document forger in Milwaukee. Complete identity package for Diana Chin / Diane Kowalski. $15,000. Birth certificate, medical records, DNA test documentation. I downloaded everything to a secure cloud drive. Then I kept searching. The more I dug, the worse it got. Diana Chen wasn't just a con artist. She was a ghost who'd perfected the art of becoming whoever she needed to be. I pulled up my firm's proprietary database, the one we used for background checks and fraud cases. My security clearance gave me access to information most people couldn't touch. I typed in Diana Chen and waited 0.3 Diana Chens in Illinois. None matching the woman who'd sat at my dinner table for 2 months, smiling with my father's eyes. I tried variations. Diane Chin, Diana Chan. Then, remembering the forger's invoice, I tried Diane Kowalski. Bingo! The screen filled with records. Diane Marie Kowalski, born 1989 in Gary, Indiana. 3 arrests for fraud in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. 2 convictions. Served 18 months in Illinois Correctional Center for Women. Released 14 months ago. Her mugshot stared back at me. Same face, same green eyes, but nothing about her said long-lost sister. Everything about her screamed professional criminal. I clicked through her case files, my legal training kicking in despite the personal horror. Kowalski specialized in inheritance fraud. Her method was consistent. Identify dying men with substantial estates, forge family documents claiming to be a secret child, manipulate the family, steal the inheritance. She'd successfully defrauded 3 families for a combined $2.40 million. But those cases never involved murder. She'd worked alone, using emotional manipulation and forged documents. No poison, no accelerated deaths. Cal had escalated her game, that I found his real background next, and it was nothing like the story he'd told me. Not from Denver, not a consultant. Kyle Martinez was a low-level gambling addict who'd worked as a junior accountant until he was fired for embezzling $30,000 from his employer. He'd met Diane, at a debt collection agency where she'd been working under another alias. Their text messages told the rest of the story. Kyle owed serious money to dangerous people. Diane offered him a way out. Partner up, target families with dying patriarchs, poison them to speed up the process, split the inheritance. Cleaner than her old method. Faster returns. They'd successfully pulled it off 3 times before targeting my father, Robert Chin in Boston, dead from complications of liver disease 9 months ago. His daughter, Jennifer, never suspected her boyfriend, Mark. Kyle, using an alias, had poisoned her father. Diane had appeared as a half-sister from Taiwan. They'd split $400,000. Michael Torres in Philadelphia dead from kidney failure 6 months ago. His son David's girlfriend Lisa, Diane using an alias, had been the poisoner. Kyle had shown up as a long-lost nephew. They'd split $600,000. James Liu in Seattle, dead from heart complications for months ago. His daughter Christine's fiancé Ryan, Kyle again, had done the poisoning. Diane had played a cousin from China. They'd split $800,000. The pattern was clear, professional, and absolutely terrifying. They'd refined their system with each victim, gotten bolder with each success, and why father was supposed to be their biggest score yet. According to Kyle's financial documents, Dad's estate was worth approximately $1.8 million. His pension, life insurance, the property in Hyde Park that had been in our family for 30 years, his investment accounts, everything. The birth certificate Diane had forged was remarkably detailed. It claimed Thomas Bennett had a relationship with a woman named Margaret Chen in 1985 before he met my mother. The fictional Margaret had died in 1990, raising Diana alone in California until recently reconnecting with her biological father. The fake DNA test looked official, complete with a laboratory logo I'd never heard of. When I looked up the lab, it didn't exist. The address listed was a vacant lot in Milwaukee, probably the same location where the document forger operated. But the most chilling detail was in the forged letters, supposedly from my father to Diana over the years. They were good, really good. They matched Dad's handwriting style, his speech patterns, even his tendency to sign off with "Stay strong, kiddo." Someone had studied him carefully, probably going through our trash, our social media, anything they could access. Kyle's email to Diane from 6 weeks ago made me want to throw up. Kyle Thomas is getting attached to Diana. Asked me yesterday if I'd be okay with her being in the will. I acted supportive, said family is important. He's eating it up. Diane, perfect. Push him toward the lawyer visit. I'll have the documents ready. Once the will is changed, we increase the doses. He won't last another month. Kyle, Rachel's working on the Morrison case, 70-hour weeks minimum. She barely notices I'm alive. This is too easy, Diane. Don't get cocky. Stay focused. After Thomas dies, we comfort Rachel, help her through probate, then disappear. Clean and simple. Kyle, what about Rachel? She's starting to ask questions about us getting married. Diane, string her along. Once we have the money, ghost her. She'll be too busy grieving to chase us down. I sat in the dark apartment, laptop glowing, my entire life reduced to a calculated con. Kyle had never loved me. Every kiss, every "I love you," every time he'd held me while I cried about work stress or Dad's diagnosis, a lot of it had been an act that I wasn't his fiancé. I was his access point, and my father wasn't his responsibility. He was the target. The rage that filled me wasn't hot and explosive. It was cold, calculating, precise. They wanted to play games with my family? Fine. But they'd just made a critical mistake that they'd targeted an attorney who specialized in catching people exactly like them. What Kyle and Diane didn't know, what I deliberately never told anyone in my personal life, was exactly what kind of attorney I was. Morrison and Associates wasn't just any corporate law firm. We were the firm that Fortune 500 companies called when someone tried to defraud them. Estate fraud, inheritance scams, forged documents, fraudulent claims, that was my specialty. I built my career prosecuting people who did exactly what Kyle and Diane were doing to my father. I'd won 17 major cases in 4 years. 17 families who'd gotten justice because I knew every trick, every loophole, every way criminals tried to steal inheritances. And now I was going to use every single skill I'd learned against the people who'd tried to destroy my family. I spent the next 6 hours documenting everything. Every text message photographed with metadata visible. Every email downloaded and backed up to 3 separate secure servers. Every financial record, every forged document, every piece of evidence carefully cataloged and timestamped AT4, 0 a.m. I called Victoria Lawson. Victoria was the senior partner who'd mentored me since I'd joined the firm. She was 52, had 20 years of experience in fraud prosecution, and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in court. She was also a black woman who'd fought her way to the top of a field dominated by white men, which meant she understood exactly what it meant to be underestimated. Rachel. Her voice was alert despite the hour. Victoria never really slept. "What's wrong? Victoria, I need to tell you something. And I need your help." I laid out everything. The poisoning, the conspiracy, the evidence I'd gathered. My father fighting for his life in St. Mary's Hospital while the people who'd tried to kill him thought they'd gotten away with it. She was silent for a long moment after I finished. Then, "How much is the estate worth?" $1.8 million, and you have documentation of their previous victims. 3 confirmed cases. Probably more if we dig deeper. Rachel. Victoria's voice had shifted into what I called her courtroom mode: sharp, focused, deadly. "We're not just fighting for your father's inheritance. We're stopping serial killers." The word hit me like ice water. Serial killers. That's what they were. They'd murdered 3 people, tried to murder my father, and they'd keep doing it to other families if someone didn't stop them. "Did I want to prosecute?" I said. "But I need your help structuring the case. This is personal, and I can't let emotion compromise the evidence." Smart girl. "Here's what we're going to do." I could hear her moving around, probably already getting dressed. "First, we document everything you found. I'll bring in Marcus Chen from forensics, no relation to fake Diana, and Jennifer Brooks from financial crimes. We build an airtight case. Doctor Morrison is keeping Dad stable for 48 hours. After that, he has to report the poisoning. 48 hours is plenty. We can freeze the estate, challenge the forged will, and prepare criminal charges. But Rachel..." She paused. "I think we should do something better first." "What do you mean?" "Let them think they've won. Let them believe your father's dead, that the will is legitimate, that you're too grief-stricken to question anything. Then we document everything they do, every incriminating word, every step of their fraud. We don't just stop them, we bury them so deep they never see daylight again." My mind was already racing ahead, seeing the strategy. "We let them walk into a trap." "Exactly. You're an attorney who specializes in fraud prosecution. Use that training. Be clinical, be strategic, and most importantly, be patient. The longer we let them talk, the more evidence they give us. What if they suspect something? They won't. You've been the perfect victim, so far trusting, busy, vulnerable. They'll expect you to stay that way. Use their arrogance against them." I looked around the apartment Kyle and I had shared, the place where I'd trusted him, loved him, believed every lie that came out of his mouth. The rage I'd felt earlier crystallized into something colder, something more useful. "I can do that. I know you can. You're one of the best fraud prosecutors I've ever trained." Victoria's voice softened slightly. "But Rachel, this is personal. If at any point you need to step back, tell me. We can bring in someone else." "No." My voice was steel. "I'm seeing this through. They tried to kill my father. They conned me, used me, made me part of their plan to commit murder. I'm not stepping back." "Good. Then let's show them what happens when they target the wrong family." We spent the next 2 hours planning every detail. Victoria would assemble the legal team, quietly, building our case behind the scenes. I would play the grieving, confused daughter. We'd let Kyle and Diane hang themselves with their own words. By the time the sun came up over Chicago, I had a plan. And it was absolutely ruthless. By 6 a.m., I'd transformed the apartment into a surveillance operation. 3 hidden cameras, the kind we used in corporate fraud cases, strategically placed in the living room, kitchen, and bedroom. Tiny, wireless, completely invisible unless you knew where to look. My phone was set up with voice-activated recording software, the kind that was admissible in court as long as one party, me, consented to the recording. Illinois was a two-party consent state for phone calls, but one-party consent for in-person conversations. Kyle and Diane had no idea everything they said in this apartment would be documented at T7:30 a.m. I sent the text message that would spring the trap. T.O. Kyle, Dad's gone. Died overnight. Come home. I need you. I watched the 3 dots appear immediately, then disappear, then appear again. He was probably with Diane, figuring out how to respond. The message that came back made my skin crawl with how perfect it was. Kyle, oh my God, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm catching the first flight out. Hold on, I'll be home as soon as I can. I love you so much. I love you so much. The same 3 words he'd said to me hundreds of times. The words that had meant nothing, had never meant anything. Me, please hurry. I can't do this alone. Kyle, you're not alone. I'll always be there for you. Landing at 11:45. I'll come straight to the apartment. I set my phone down and looked around the apartment with new eyes. Every surface clean, every camera angle perfect, every piece of technology ready to capture whatever happened next. Then I called my office and took bereavement leave. My assistant Jennifer was appropriately sympathetic, told me to take all the time I needed, promised to handle my cases. She had no idea I'd be working harder in the next 48 hours than I'd worked in months. I changed into sweatpants and one of Dad's old construction company t-shirts, the kind of outfit that screamed devastated daughter. I messed up my hair, splashed cold water on my face to make my eyes red and puffy, and practiced my broken voice in the mirror till he's really gone. Too theatrical. I can't believe he's gone. Better. I keep expecting him to call me. Perfect, confused, grief-stricken, vulnerable. I was ready. Kyle's key turned in the lock at exactly 11:52 p.m. He'd made good time, probably broke every speed limit between O'Hare and Lincoln Park. The door opened, and there he was, my fiancé of 2 years, the man I'd planned to marry, the man who tried to murder my father. He looked appropriately concerned, his eyes scanning my face with practiced worry. Babe! Oh my God! Come here! I let him wrap his arms around me, let him hold me while I manufactured trembling sobs against his chest. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to claw at his face, to scream the truth. But I held steady, patient, clinical. That's when I noticed the second person behind him. Rachel, Kyle said softly, pulling back slightly. Diana heard about your dad. She wanted to come pay her respects. They'd gotten really close. Diana stood in the doorway of my apartment, wearing an appropriately somber black dress, her face arranged in an expression of sympathy. Those green eyes, Dad's eyes, except they weren't met mine with perfect fake concern. I'm so sorry for your loss, she said, her voice catching just slightly. Your father was an incredible man. The cameras were rolling. The recorder was active. Let the games begin. Have you ever had to smile at someone while knowing they'd tried to destroy everything you loved? Have you ever had to pretend weakness while planning every move 3 steps ahead? That's where I was in that moment, standing in my own apartment with my father's would-be murderers, performing grief while rage burned cold and steady inside me. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely, you understand that feeling. That moment when the person you thought you knew reveals themselves as a complete stranger. Someone who'd used your trust, your love, your vulnerability as weapons against you. Kyle had held me while I cried about Dad's diagnosis. He'd made me breakfast on hard mornings. He'd said, I love you, while slowly poisoning the man who'd raised me alone. What would you do in my position? Would you call the police immediately, let the system handle it? Or would you do what I did, play the long game, gather evidence so airtight that they'd never escape justice? Type justice in the comments if you'd do whatever it takes to protect your family. Let me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with people who understand that sometimes the smartest revenge is the one that takes patience and strategy. Before I tell you how this trap snapped shut around them, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, what comes next isn't just revenge. It's chess played at the highest level. It's everything I'd learned in 4 years of prosecuting fraud cases. turned against the people who thought I was too grief-stricken to fight back. They made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. They saw a busy attorney who was too focused on her career to notice what was happening in her own home. They thought I was the perfect victim, trusting, vulnerable, easy to manipulate. What they didn't know was that I'd built my entire career stopping people exactly like them. Every trick they'd used, I'd seen before. Every forged document, every manipulation tactic, every lie. I'd prosecuted dozens of cases involving these exact schemes. Kyle and Diane walked into my apartment thinking they'd won. They thought my father was dead, the will was changed, and I was too devastated to ask questions. They thought they'd have their split of $1.8 million within weeks and disappear like they'd done 3 times before. They had no idea they'd just walked onto a stage where every word, every gesture, every incriminating statement was being captured in high definition. Subscribe if you believe in fighting back smarter, not just harder. Share this with someone who needs to hear that you don't have to accept betrayal quietly. You can fight back. You can win. Now let me show you what happened when I let them think I was the perfect victim. When I let them believe their plan had worked flawlessly. Let me show you what happens when you target the wrong daughter. The next 3 days were a masterclass in performance. I played the devastated daughter so convincingly that I almost believed it myself. Kyle and Diane stayed close, which was exactly what I wanted. Every conversation recorded, every statement documented. Every step of their fraud captured in crystal clarity. Day 1, they helped me make arrangements. We sat at my kitchen table, me with tissues clutched in my hand, them with practiced expressions of sympathy. Diane had notes about funeral homes and cremation services. Your father mentioned to me that he wanted something simple, she said, carefully watching my reaction. He didn't want a big fuss. I stared at her with red-rimmed eyes. He talked to you about funeral arrangements? We'd gotten close over the last couple months. He opened up to me about a lot of things. She reached across the table, putting her hand on mine. The audacity of it. Rachel, there's something I need to tell you. Something your father made me promise to share with you after he was gone. Here it comes. Kyle squeezed my shoulder supportively. He was good at this, the caring fiancé routine. Maybe give her a few days, Diana. She's still processing that, N.O. Diane's voice was firm but gentle. Thomas specifically said to tell Rachel right away. He didn't want her blindsided that I looked between them, plain confused. Tell me what? Diane pulled papers from her bag. Official-looking documents with embossed seals and notarized signatures. Your father changed his will last week. He wanted to make sure I was included, to make things right after all these years of not knowing each other. The fake birth certificate was on top. Diana Chin, born March 15, 1985, to Thomas Bennett and Margaret Chin. Father's signature right there at the bottom. Except it wasn't really his signature. It was close, but the T in Thomas had a slight curve that Dad never used that I'd know. I'd studied his handwriting on every birthday card he'd ever given me. I don't understand, I whispered right on cue. Dad had another daughter? He didn't know about me until recently, Diane explained, her voice catching. My mother raised me alone. She died 3 years ago, and I decided to find my biological father. The DNA test confirmed it. She slid another document across the table. I know this is overwhelming, especially right now. Kyle rubbed my back in slow circles. Your dad probably wanted to protect you from the pain, babe. Finding out he had another child, dealing with that complexity on top of the cancer, he probably thought this was easier. I studied the documents with shaking hands. The DNA test looked official, complete with lab results showing 99.8% probability of paternal match. The letters were in Dad's handwriting or close enough to fool most people. But I wasn't most people. I'd prosecuted 17 cases of inheritance fraud. I knew what forged documents looked like, and these were textbook forgeries. I had no idea, I said, finally, my voice breaking. All this time, Dad had another daughter, and I never knew. Diane's eyes gleamed with what looked like tears but was probably triumph. Your father loved you so much, Rachel. He talked about you constantly. How smart you are, how successful. He was so proud. She paused delicately. He wanted to make sure we were both taken care of. The estate will be split, but there's plenty for both of us split. There it was that I looked up at Kyle, at this man I'd almost married, this man who'd spent 2 years gaining my trust just to steal my father's money. Did you know about this? Diana told me a few weeks ago, he said smoothly. I wanted to tell you, but your dad asked me not to. He said he'd handle it when the time was right. Such beautiful lies, such perfect manipulation. And every single word was being recorded that I wiped my eyes with a tissue. I just want to do what Dad wanted. I want to honor his wishes. Diane relaxed visibly. Kyle's hand tightened on my shoulder. Satisfaction, not comfort. They thought they'd won. There's one more thing, Diane said gently. For tax purposes and probate, we should move quickly. Your father's estate attorney can meet with us tomorrow to start the paperwork. Estate attorney? I let my voice sound confused, overwhelmed. Marcus Wong, very reputable. He handled your father's will change last week. She pulled out a business card. I know it seems fast, but trust me, it's better to handle these things quickly. Less complicated, Marcus Wong. Another member of their team. Another person who'd be going down with them. Okay, I said softly. Whatever needs to be done. I just want this to be over. Kyle pulled me into his arms. You're being so strong, babe. Your dad would be proud of how you're handling this. Over his shoulder, I could see the tiny camera lens in the smoke detector capturing everything. In my pocket, my phone was recording every word. Let them think I was strong and compliant. Let them think I trusted them completely. Let them keep talking. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. at 233 South Wacker Drive, one of Chicago's most prestigious business addresses. Marcus Wong's office was on the 42nd floor with views of the river and the Willis Tower. Everything about it screamed legitimacy, except Marcus Wong wasn't a real estate attorney. He was another member of Kyle and Diane's crew, playing his role in their carefully choreographed fraud. What they didn't know was that I'd brought my own player to the game. You don't have to bring an attorney, Kyle had said that morning, watching me get dressed in my black suit. Marcus is really good. He'll make sure everything's handled properly that I know, but this is a big decision. I adjusted my collar, meeting his eyes in the mirror. Victoria Lawson is a family friend. She offered to look over the paperwork, make sure I understand everything. It'll make me feel better. Kyle had hesitated for just a fraction of a second, long enough for me to see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Then he'd smiled. Of course, babe. Whatever makes you comfortable. He had no idea who Victoria Lawson actually was. Neither did Diane. Victoria met me in the lobby at 1:55 p.m. She looked every inch the successful attorney in her charcoal gray suit and Louboutin heels, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo. We'd agreed she'd play the role of concerned family friend, experienced enough to ask questions, but not so aggressive that she'd spook our targets. Ready? She murmured as we stepped into the elevator. Let's end this. The elevator doors opened onto a reception area that looked expensive marble floors, modern furniture, abstract art on the walls. A young receptionist greeted us with a professional smile. Miss Bennett, Mr. Wong is expecting you. Kyle and Diane were already in the conference room. Diane wore a conservative navy dress, her hair pulled back, playing the role of respectful, long-lost daughter. Kyle stood when I entered, came over to kiss my cheek. The gesture made my skin crawl. Rachel, I'm so glad you made it. Marcus Wong rose from his seat at the head of the table. He was 50-ish, gray at the temples, wearing an expensive suit. He looked exactly like what a successful estate attorney should look like. And you must be Ms. Lawson. Victoria shook his hand with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Victoria Lawson. I'm here to make sure Rachel understands all the implications of today's decisions. Something flickered across Wong's face too quick for most people to catch. But I saw it. Concern. maybe even fear. Of course, of course. Please have a seat. He gestured to the chairs across from him. I know this is a difficult time, so I'll try to make this as straightforward as possible. He pulled out a stack of documents, sliding them across the polished table. As you know, Thomas Bennett updated his will 1 week before his passing. He wanted to ensure both his daughters were provided for, with particular consideration given to Diana, whom he'd only recently reconnected with. I picked up the will, my hands shaking slightly. Not from nerves, from rage. The document was beautifully forged, complete with Dad's signature and 2 witness signatures I didn't recognize. The estate, valued at approximately $1.8 million, will be divided as follows. Wong's voice was smooth, practiced. 80% to Diana Chin, 20% to Rachel Bennett. Victoria leaned forward. That seems like quite a disparity. Can you explain the reasoning? Thomas felt he owed Diana for the years they'd lost. Wong had his explanation ready. He wanted to make things right with his firstborn daughter to compensate for the time they didn't have together. His firstborn. I let my voice crack. I still can't believe I had a sister all this time. Diane reached across the table, touching my hand. Your father loved you so much, Rachel. This isn't about loving you less. It's about trying to make amends for mistakes he made before you were even born. The audacity, the sheer nerve of this woman, sitting here pretending to be my sister while she'd helped poison my father. Victoria was examining the documents with a lawyer's eye. These witness signatures, are these individuals? Associates of mine who were present when Thomas signed. Wong's answer was too quick. Everything was done properly, I assure you. And the DNA test confirming Diana's relationship to Thomas, right here. Diane pulled out the fake lab results. 99.8% probability. I know this is overwhelming, Rachel. If you need time to process, no. Cal cut in his hand on my shoulder. I mean, we should move forward, right? For tax purposes? That's what you said, Marcus. Wong nodded seriously. The estate tax implications are significant. The sooner we file the probate paperwork, the better. I'd recommend signing today if possible. Victoria set down the papers. This seems rushed. Rachel's father just died. Surely a few more days won't matter. Every day we delay costs money in taxes and penalties. Wong was pushing now, getting aggressive. I understand you want to protect your friend, Ms. Lawson. But as Rachel's father's attorney, I have a fiduciary duty to preserve the estate's value. Of course. Victoria smiled coldly. What firm did you say you were with? The question landed like a grenade in the middle of the table. Wong blinked. I'm sorry? Your firm. I like to know who I'm working with. Professional Courtesy Wong and Associates. He recovered quickly, but I'd seen the momentary panic. Interesting. I don't recall seeing that firm in the Illinois State Bar directory. Victoria pulled out her phone. Let me just check, Ms. Lawson. I don't appreciate the implication. Wong's professional mask was slipping. Everything here is legitimate and above board. Then you won't mind if I verify your credentials? Kyle stood up. This is insulting. Marcus has been nothing but professional. Rachel, we don't need this kind of hostility. I looked between them, playing the confused, overwhelmed daughter. I just want to do what's right. What Dad wanted. I picked up the pen next to the documents. If this is what he wanted, Rachel, wait. Victoria put her hand over mine. Before you sign anything, I think you should see something. She pulled out her phone, but before she could show me whatever she'd planned, my phone rang. The ringtone Dad's favorite jazz song cut through the tension in the room. I looked at the screen. St. Mary's Hospital. I should take this, I said, my voice shaking. It might be about funeral arrangements. Everyone nodded sympathetically as I answered, Miss Bennett? Dr. Morrison's voice came through clearly. I need you back at the hospital immediately. I stood up slowly, my entire body going rigid. What's wrong? Did something happen with the arrangements? Your father's awake. The words hung in the air like a bomb. The room went completely silent, not the comfortable quiet of people waiting for someone to finish a phone call. The dead, frozen silence of people whose entire world had just shattered. I stared at my phone, letting my face show total confusion. I'm sorry, what? Your father, Thomas Bennett. He's awake and responsive. Dr. Morrison's voice was loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. Rachel, we need you here right away. He's asking for you. But he died 3 days ago. I said goodbye. And oh, Miss Bennett, your father's been in a medically induced coma while we treated him. He's alive, and he's awake. My hand started shaking for real this time. My father is alive. Across the table, Diane's face had drained of all color. Her perfectly composed expression cracked, showing raw panic underneath. Kyle had gone absolutely still, his eyes locked on my phone like it was a venomous snake. Marcus Wong's mouth opened and closed without sound. Put it on speaker, Victoria said quietly. I think everyone needs to hear this. I tapped the speaker button with trembling fingers. Dr. Morrison's voice filled the conference room. Miss Bennett, your father is very concerned. He's saying his will was forged, that someone's been trying to steal his estate. He mentioned something about arsenic poisoning. A deliberate pause. Does any of this make sense to you? Looked directly at Diane. Her green eyes, those fake sympathetic eyes, were wide with terror. Doctor Morrison, I said clearly, are you telling me my father has been alive this entire time? Yes. We kept him in a medically induced coma after discovering the poisoning. Once we stopped the source of the arsenic, his body began healing. His cancer prognosis has actually improved significantly now that he's not being actively poisoned. Kyle's phone slipped from his fingers, clattering on the marble floor. Poisoned? I let my voice rise. Someone was poisoning my father. The toxicology reports are clear. Systematic arsenic exposure over approximately 6 months. Rachel, I really need you to come to the hospital. Your father is quite agitated, and the police want to speak with you. The police. That word cut through the room like a blade. Diane stood up so fast her chair fell backward. I need to use the restroom. Victoria stood too, blocking the door. I don't think so. Her voice had changed completely. No more friendly family attorney. This was Victoria Lawson, senior partner, fraud prosecutor, absolutely done playing games. I'm Victoria Lawson, senior partner at Morrison & Associates. We specialize in estate fraud. She pulled a small recorder from her purse, holding it up. Everything said in this room has been recorded. The forged will, the fake DNA test, the fraudulent birth certificate, and most importantly, your attempts to pressure Rachel into signing away 80% of her father's estate. Wong lunged for the documents on the table. Victoria was faster, sweeping them into her briefcase. Building security is already on their way up, she continued. I called them 5 minutes ago. This is a misunderstanding, Kyle said, finding his voice. His face was white, his hands held up in a placating gesture. Rachel, baby, this isn't what it looks like. I can explain. Explain to the police. My voice came out cold, flat. Nothing like the grief-stricken daughter I'd been playing for 3 days. They're on their way. Rachel, please. He moved toward me. You don't understand. I love you. This was all a what? Diana's idea. I stepped back, putting the conference table between us. That's what you texted her 8 months ago, right? That you'd handle the daughter, while she handled the documentation. His face went from white to gray. You read the how did you the burner phone you kept taped to the back of your dresser drawer? The one with 8 months of texts planning my father's murder? I found it Tuesday night. I've had 3 days to prepare for this moment. The conference room door burst open. Building security, 2 large men in suits entered first. Behind them, 2 Chicago police detectives I'd coordinated with that morning. Nobody move, the lead detective said, his hand resting on his service weapon. We have a warrant for the arrest of Kyle Martinez, Diane Kowalski, and Marcus Wong. Diane made a break for it, trying to push past security. One of them caught her arm, spinning her against the wall. I'm not going anywhere until I see that warrant, Diane Kowalski, also known as Diana Chin, also known as Diane Martinez, also known as Michelle Chin. The detective pulled out handcuffs. You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and forgery. I want a lawyer, Diane spat. I'm not saying anything without a lawyer. Kyle was still staring at me, betrayal written all over his face, as if he had any right to feel betrayed. You set us up. This whole thing was a setup. You tried to murder my father. I met his eyes without flinching. Did you really think I'd just let you get away with it? Kyle Martinez, the second detective moved in. You're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent. It was all Diana's idea. Kyle's composure shattered completely. I just helped. I didn't know about the poison, I swear. She said it was just document fraud, just a quick inheritance scam. I didn't know she was killing people. Shut up, you idiot. Diane screamed from where she was being cuffed against the wall. You're lying. Kyle shouted back. You said it was safe, that it was just paperwork. The arsenic was your idea, the fake birth certificate, all of it. I said, shut up. The detectives exchanged glances. Suspects turning on each other was always helpful. Victoria was recording everything on her phone, documenting their statements. Wong tried a different approach. Officers, I think there's been a terrible mistake. I'm an attorney. I was simply handling you're not an attorney. Victoria's voice cut through his protest. Marcus Wong isn't registered with the Illinois State Bar. This office is rented by the hour, and you're part of a conspiracy that's murdered 3 people and attempted to murder a 4th. Wong's face crumbled. He didn't even try to resist when the detective cuffed him. As they were being let out, Kyle looked back at me one more time. I did love you, Rachel. Some of it was real, and I said quietly. None of it was real. And you're going to prison for a very long time. The conference room door closed behind them. The sound of Diane's screaming faded down the hallway. I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly weak. Victoria sat down next to me, putting her hand on my shoulder. You did it, she said softly. You got them, we got them, I corrected. I couldn't have done this without you. Outside the conference room windows, Chicago spread out below us. Somewhere in this city, my father was waking up, healing, getting a second chance at life, and 3 people who'd thought they were clever enough to get away with murder were learning they'd chosen the wrong target. Let me be clear about something. My father wasn't actually awake when Dr. Morrison called. That was a coordinated move, timed perfectly to spring the trap when Kyle, Diane, and Wong had committed themselves on camera. But he also wasn't dead. Not even close. Here's what really happened. When Dr. Morrison discovered the arsenic poisoning on that Tuesday evening, we made a decision together. He kept Dad in a medically induced coma, standard procedure for poison treatment, while we worked to flush the toxins from his system. The moment Kyle stopped administering the arsenic, Dad's condition began improving. Dramatically. The cancer was still there, stage 4 pancreatic, but without someone actively poisoning him, his body could finally fight back. The chemo could actually work instead of competing with deliberate toxins. Doctor Morrison called it the most remarkable turnaround he'd seen in 30 years of oncology. Turned out, Dad wasn't dying quite as fast as everyone thought. Someone had just been helping him along. Why, Wednesday morning, Dad's vitals had stabilized. By Thursday, Dr. Morrison was cautiously optimistic. The cancer hadn't spread as much as the initial scans suggested. The aggressive deterioration everyone had witnessed over the past 6 months? That was the arsenic, not the disease. We coordinated the fake death announcement together. Dr. Morrison, Victoria, and me. We needed Kyle and Diane to believe they'd won. Needed them confident enough to move forward with our fraud. needed them to incriminate themselves so thoroughly that no lawyer could save them. Dad would have approved. He'd spent 40 years in construction, building skyscrapers that required precise timing and coordination. This was just another construction project building a case that would withstand any legal challenge. While Kyle and Diane were planning funeral arrangements and discussing estate division, Dad was in a private recovery room under an assumed name. Hospital security stationed outside his door 24/7. Nobody except Dr. Morrison, a select few nurses, and me knew Thomas Bennett was still alive. Victoria had arranged everything legally. The fake death certificate was actually a sealed medical document, not filed with the state, not official, just enough to make Kyle and Diane believe their plan had worked. Completely legal because no official records were falsified. The toxicology report showing arsenic poisoning, 100% real, admissible in any court. The timeline showing exactly when the doses were administered, backed up by medical records, pharmacy records, and Kyle's own Amazon purchase history, where he'd hidden the arsenic in an order for organic garden pest control. The hidden cameras in my apartment? Legal, because it was my residence and I had every right to record what happened in my own home. The recordings from the conference room? Legal, because I'd consented to being recorded, and Illinois law only required one-party consent. Every piece of evidence was airtight. Every step of the trap was documented. Every word Kyle and Diane had said was captured in high definition. They'd walked into a prosecution case that would make headlines for months, and Dad was alive to see justice served. The interrogation rooms at Chicago Police Department's 18th District were exactly what you'd expect. Gray walls, metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and a two-way mirror that everyone knew was there, but pretended not to notice. I sat in one of those rooms Thursday evening, across from detectives Sarah Williams and James Rodriguez. Between us on the table was a comprehensive evidence package that Victoria and I had spent 3 days assembling. "Walk us through it," Detective Williams said, her pen poised over a notepad. I pulled out the first item, Kyle's burner phone. 8 months of text messages between him and Diane Kolsky, the woman, calling herself Dianachin. The messages start in March, before my father was even diagnosed with cancer. I opened the phone to the earliest messages, sliding it across the table. Detective Rodriguez scrolled through, his expression growing darker with each screen. "They researched targets," I explained. "My father specifically. They knew about his construction pension, his life insurance, the property in Hyde Park. They knew I worked 70-hour weeks at a corporate law firm. They planned the entire thing before Kyle ever asked me out." "He courted you as part of the con," Williams said flatly. "Everything was planned. Every date, every I love you, every supportive gesture. He was gaining access to my father, and I was the key." I pulled out more documents. Here are Kyle's financial records. He owed $200,000 to Dmitry Volkov, a loan shark connected to the Russian mob. The debt collection emails started getting threatening in February. Rodriguez whistled low. "That's serious money." Diane offered him a way out. Partnership. They'd done it before. I slid 3 more folders across the table. Robert Chin in Boston, Michael Torres in Philadelphia, James Liu in Seattle. 3 men, all died within the last year. All had substantial estates. All had adult children who trusted the wrong people. Williams opened the first folder. "You confirmed these cases?" "My firm has connections with fraud investigators in multiple states." We pulled the records. Each case followed the same pattern. Someone close to the victim started administering poison disguised as helpful caregiving. Someone else appeared claiming to be a long-lost relative. Forged documents supported the claim. The victim died. The estate was split, and both conspirators disappeared. "Until they met you," Rodriguez said, "until they didn't know I'm an attorney who prosecutes exactly these kinds of cases for a living." I pulled out Diane's criminal record. Diane Kowalski. Real name for arrests for fraud across 3 states. 2 convictions. Served 18 months in Illinois Correctional Center for Women. Released 14 months ago. She specializes in forged identity documents. Williams studied the mugshot. Same woman who claimed to be Diana Chin. Same green eyes, same face, completely fabricated identity. I laid out the forged document birth certificate, DNA test, letters from my father. Everything fake. The birth certificate lists a laboratory in Milwaukee that doesn't exist. The address is a vacant lot. The DNA test was created using a template she bought from a document forger for $15,000. You can prove that. Kyle's email has the invoice. He paid via PayPal, which leaves a beautiful paper trail. I pulled up the transaction on my laptop. $15,000 to Marcus Chin, no relation to fake Diana professional document forger based in Milwaukee. He's already been arrested. Gave up everyone in exchange for a reduced sentence. Rodriguez was making notes rapidly. What about the arsenic? Kyle's Amazon purchase history, dated April 3rd, hidden in an order for organic gardening supplies. Sodium arsenite marketed as pest control. I showed them the receipt. It was delivered to our apartment. I have the UPS tracking number, signature confirmation. Everything that he used his own credit card. He thought he was being clever by hiding it in a larger order. Bought a trowel, potting soil, plant food, and by the way, enough arsenic to kill 3 people. I pulled out the toxicology reports. Dr. Morrison documented every dose in Dad's system. We can correlate the poisoning timeline with the days Kyle had access to Dad's medication. Williams was looking at the medical records. Your father's cancer prognosis improved once the poisoning stopped? Dramatically. Turns out he wasn't dying as fast as everyone thought. The aggressive deterioration was arsenic toxicity mimicking cancer progression. Once we stopped the source, his body started healing that I pulled out the final piece of evidence, a USB drive. Hidden camera footage from my apartment and the conference room meeting. Every word they said about the estate fraud, every forged document they presented, every lie they told. All recorded in high definition. Rodriguez took the drive. How'd you get conference room footage? Victoria Lawson had a camera in her briefcase. I had one in my purse. Both recorded the entire meeting where Marcus Wong tried to pressure me into signing away 80% of Dad's estate based on forged documents. Wong's not a real attorney, not licensed in Illinois or any other state. The office was rented by the hour. He's done this before. Played the role of legitimate estate attorney for Diane's schemes. He gets a flat fee of $25,000 per successful fraud. I showed them Wong's bank statements. 3 deposits matching that amount in the past year. Each one deposited shortly after one of the victims died. Williams sat back, looking at the mountain of evidence spread across the table. This is the most comprehensive fraud case I've seen in 20 years. I had 3 days and the resources of one of Chicago's top corporate law firms. I met her eyes. These people tried to murder my father. I wasn't going to let them walk away, that they're not walking anywhere, Rodriguez said. Kyle's already trying to flip on Diane. I heard him screaming in the conference room. He's claiming it was all her idea, that he didn't know about the poison, that she manipulated him. Williams smirked. His lawyer told him to shut up, but he kept talking. We've got him on recording blaming her for everything. Diane's not talking at all, Rodriguez added. Lawyered up immediately. But with this evidence, she doesn't need to. We've got her cold. I stood up, gathering my copies of the documents. What happens now? They're being charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery, and about 6 other felonies. The DA is building cases for the 3 previous victims, too. Williams walked me to the door. Kyle's facing 25 years minimum. Diane's looking at 40. Wong's taking a plea deal in exchange for testimony. Good. I the elevator. Williams stopped me. One more thing. There are news cameras outside. Your firm put out a statement. This story is going viral, that I'd known it would. Victoria had tipped off a reporter friend, someone who'd cover the story fairly but comprehensively. We wanted this public not for revenge, but to warn other families, to let people know this kind of fraud exists, to show that you can fight back. The elevator doors opened. Detective Williams held out her hand. Your father's lucky to have a daughter like you. I shook her hand. I'm lucky to still have a father. BY Friday morning. My phone was exploding with notifications. The story had gone viral overnight, spreading across every social media platform faster than Kyle's lies had spread through my life. Breaking. Chicago attorney exposes fiancé's plot to murder father. Steal $1.8 million inheritance. That was the Tribune headline. Below it, the article detailed everything: the poisoning, the fake sister, the forged documents, the coordinated sting operation that caught all three conspirators on camera. A Victoria's firm had released a carefully worded statement. Morrison and Associates commends Rachel Bennett's courage and strategic thinking in protecting her father and bringing criminals to justice. Ms. Bennett's dedication to her family and her legal expertise resulted in the apprehension of dangerous individuals who had previously defrauded multiple families. The comment sections across all platforms were on fire. At Justice Seeker, this woman is a queen. Used her legal knowledge to destroy the people trying to destroy her father. That's love right there. At Chicago Native, they tried to con a fraud attorney. That's like trying to rob a bank manager. The stupidity is almost impressive. At True Crime Fan, the fact that she kept it together for 3 days pretending to grieve while gathering evidence, that ice cold. I love it. Kyle's former employer had released a terse statement confirming his termination for conduct unbecoming and violation of company ethics policies. Translation: they didn't want any association with attempted murder. The video clips Victoria had approved for media release, carefully edited to show only the incriminating parts. Nothing that could compromise the trial were being shared thousands of times. Kyle's panicked face when Dr. Morrison called. Diane trying to run. Wong stammered excuses. All of it captured in crystal clarity, but the most powerful shares were coming from unexpected sources. Other families who'd been targeted by similar scams. Adult children who'd almost fallen for long-lost relative cons. People who'd had loved ones die under mysterious circumstances. At Boston Daughter. This happened to my father in March. Diana claimed to be his daughter from a previous relationship. We believed her. Dad died 2 months later. I'm contacting Chicago PD tomorrow. That was Jennifer Chen, Robert Chen's daughter, one of Diane's previous victims. She was coming forward because I'd come forward. At Philly Family, Michael Torres was my uncle. We thought his death was natural. Reading this article, I'm not so sure anymore. The hashtags were trending. Hashtag Justice for Thomas, hashtag Fraud Exposed, hashtag Smart Revenge. My story wasn't just going viral. It was opening cases. It was connecting victims. It was showing people that predators like Kyle and Diane could be stopped. And somewhere in Illinois correctional facility, Diane Kowalski was probably realizing that her entire operation was crumbling because she'd targeted the wrong daughter. The Cook County State's attorney didn't waste time. Kyle Martinez and Diane Kowalski were arraigned within 72 hours of their arrest. Both denied bail due to flight risk and the severity of charges. Kyle cracked first, sitting in county lockup, facing 25 years for attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. He made the calculation criminals always make when they realize the game is over. Save yourself. His public defender negotiated a plea deal. 15 years in exchange for full cooperation. Kyle would testify against Diane, reveal every detail of their operation, and help prosecutors build cases for the 3 previous victims. I was in the state's attorney's office when Kyle gave his formal statement. He looked different. The charming, helpful fiancé was gone. In his place sat a hollow-eyed man who'd realized too late that partnership with a serial killer comes with consequences. We targeted 6 families total, he said, his voice flat. 3 successful hits before Thomas Bennett. The pattern was always the same: find a dying man with substantial assets and a busy adult child. I'd seduce the daughter or son, gain their trust, move in to help with caregiving. Diane would create a false identity as a long-lost relative. The prosecutor leaned forward. And the arsenic. That was Diane's innovation. Before me, she just used forged documents and emotional manipulation. But inheritance cases take time, and there's always risk the victim will change their mind or get suspicious. Kyle's hands shook as he spoke. She realized if we accelerated the death, we'd have less exposure time, faster in and out. You poisoned 4 men. I administered the doses. Diane acquired the arsenic and planned the timing. Small amounts mixed into medications, supplements, even food. Just enough to look like natural disease progression. He detailed everything. Robert Chun in Boston, dead within 4 months of Kyle entering his daughter's life. Michael Torres in Philadelphia, 3 months. James Liu in Seattle, 2 months. They'd been refining their system, getting faster, bolder. Thomas Bennett was supposed to be our biggest score. 1.8 million. Diane had the documents: perfect birth certificate, DNA test, letters spanning decades. We thought we had it locked down. Until Rachel Bennett turned out to be a fraud prosecutor. Kyle actually laughed, bitter and broken. Yeah, until that. Diane ran background on her SAW attorney and figured corporate law, contracts, boring stuff. We had no idea she specialized in exactly what we were doing. The statement took 6 hours, every detail documented, recorded, notarized. Kyle Martinez was done running. Diane Kowalski refused every plea offer. She went to trial 3 months later, confident her lawyer could create reasonable doubt. She was wrong that I testified for 2 days straight. Presented every piece of evidence: the burner phone, the forged documents, Kyle's confession, the timeline of arsenic doses. Victoria sat in the gallery, watching me dismantle Diane's defense with the same precision I'd used to build my career. Diane's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone who'd fabricated evidence out of grief and anger. The jury wasn't buying it. When I played the hidden camera footage of Diane pushing forged birth certificates across the conference table, claiming to be my father's daughter, several jurors visibly recoiled. When I showed her text messages planning my father's death, one juror wiped tears from her eyes. The prosecutor's closing argument was devastating. Diane Kowalski is a predator who's made a career of destroying families. She's murdered 3 men and attempted to murder a 4th. She's stolen millions from grieving children. And she would have kept going if Rachel Bennett hadn't been smart enough, strong enough, and brave enough to stop her. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, forgery, identity theft. The judge sentenced her to 35 years without possibility of parole. With Diane's age, 36 at sentencing, she'd likely die in prison. I asked they let her out of the courtroom. She looked at me one time. No remorse, no apology, just cold calculation, probably already planning her appeal, that I didn't look away. I'd stared down worse things than her manufactured green eyes. The families of Robert Chin, Michael Torres, and James Liu filed civil suits, using evidence from Kyle's testimony and my investigation. They recovered portions of their stolen inheritances. Not everything Diane had spent lavishly, but enough to feel like justice. Marcus Chin, the document forger, got 8 years after his testimony helped convict Wong. Marcus Wong, the fake attorney, took a plea deal for 6 years plus restitution payments. The entire operation collapsed because they'd made one fatal miscalculation. They'd targeted a woman who knew exactly how to fight back. 3 weeks after the arrests, Dr. Morrison called me at 6 a.m. "Rachel, you need to get here. Your father's waking up." I made it to St. Mary's in 15 minutes, still in my pajamas, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Dr. Morrison met me outside the ICU, his face showing cautious optimism I'd never seen before. The arsenic is completely cleared from his system. His kidney function is improving. The cancer hasn't progressed since we stopped the poisoning. He put his hand on my shoulder. Rachel, your father is going to make it. Dad's eyes opened slowly, focusing on my face with confusion that shifted to recognition. His voice was rough from the breathing tube they'd removed an hour earlier. Rachel? What happened? Where am I? I took his hand, feeling warmth I'd thought I'd never feel again. Dad, you're at St. Mary's. You've been sick, but you're getting better now. Kyle was supposed to bring me my medication. Where's Kyle? The question hit me like a physical blow. He didn't know. He'd been unconscious for 3 weeks, had no idea that the man he'd trusted had been slowly killing him. Dad, I've got so much to tell you, but first you need to rest. You're safe now. That's what matters. Over the next several days, I explained everything gently, carefully watching his face process betrayal that mirrored my own. The poisoning, the fake sister, the forged will. Kyle's arrest, his reaction surprised me. Not anger, guilt. I brought them into our lives, he said one afternoon, tears streaming down his weathered face. Into our home. I trusted Kyle with you, with me, with everything. This is my fault, N.O. I gripped his hand tighter. Dad, they were professionals. They'd done this successfully 3 times before us. They studied us, planned everything, knew exactly what to say and do. You didn't bring predators into our home. They infiltrated it. There's a difference that I should have seen it. Should have questioned why Kyle was so helpful, why Diana appeared out of nowhere. They forged documents that would fool forensic experts. They created an entire false identity. You're a construction worker, not a fraud investigator. You had no reason to suspect the man who was helping care for you was actually murdering you. We spent hours talking as he recovered. The ICU became our confessional, our therapy session, our chance to rebuild what Kyle and Diane had tried to destroy. I took leave from work, spending every day at his bedside. The bond we'd always had deepened through crisis. Dad had raised me alone after Mom died, worked double shifts to put me through college, never complained about the sacrifice. Now it was my turn to take care of him. I'm not letting them win, he said one morning, his voice stronger than it had been in months. They tried to kill me, tried to steal from you, tried to break us. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. The oncology team was cautiously optimistic. Without the arsenic actively sabotaging his system, the chemotherapy could actually work. The tumors were responding to treatment. Dad's prognosis went from weeks to live to potential years. He fought. Every day, every treatment, every setback. He fought with the determination of a man who'd spent 40 years building skyscrapers and wasn't about to let criminals tear down his life 0.6 weeks after waking up. Dad was discharged. The cancer was in partial remission. He'd need ongoing treatment, monitoring, care. But he was alive. We walked out of St. Mary's together, into Chicago sunshine that felt like a gift we'd almost lost forever. I couldn't go back to the apartment Kyle and I had shared. Everything about that space was contaminated, every room where he'd pretended to love me, every surface where he'd prepared my father's poison meals, every corner hiding secrets I'd been too blind to see. I found Dad a new place in Hyde Park, close to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where his oncology team was based. 2 bedrooms, accessible design, close to the park where he could walk when he felt strong enough. A fresh start in a neighborhood we'd always loved. The old apartment I sold at a loss. Didn't care. I donated the entire proceeds, $40,000, to the Illinois Poison Control Center and their elder abuse prevention programs. Money that had been tainted by Kyle's presence could at least do some good. Victoria called me into her office 6 months after the trial. Rachel, the partners have been discussing your future with the firm. She sat back in her leather chair, studying me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. We'd like to offer you a partnership track. Youngest person we've ever extended this opportunity to. I dreamed of making partners since law school, but the terms had changed. I need flexibility for Dad's care. Doctor appointments, treatment days, emergencies, already built into the proposal. Your caseload will be managed accordingly. We're not asking you to choose between your career and your father. We're asking you to bring the same dedication you showed protecting him to protecting other families. I accepted. Senior associate on partnership track, specializing in estate fraud and elder abuse cases. My profile in the legal community exploded. The attorney who'd caught her own father's killers became the go-to expert for families fighting similar predators. Therapy helped. Dr. Chin, no relation to any of the others, specialized in betrayal trauma. Twice a week, I sat in her office and processed the reality that I'd been in love with someone who never existed. Kyle Martinez, the person, wasn't real, she explained during one session. He was a character designed to exploit your vulnerabilities. Grieving him would be like grieving a fictional character. IT helped. Slowly, the nurse who'd cared for Dad during his recovery. Daniel Cooper, 34, genuine smile, no hidden agenda, asked me to coffee 8 months after Dad was discharged. I almost said no. Trust felt impossible. But Dad encouraged me to don't let them steal your future along with everything else they tried to take. Daniel and I took it slowly. Coffee became dinner, became tentative dating. He understood my caution, never pushed, let me set the pace. A year later, we were still together, still taking it one day at a time. That I became an advocate. Spoke at legal conferences about elder fraud. Testified before the state legislature on stricter penalties for inheritance scams. Helped draft new protocols for hospitals to recognize poisoning patterns. My life rebuilt itself, brick by brick, case by case, day by day. Different from what I'd planned, but maybe better. More real. Built on truth instead of lies. Why father survived 6 more years after Kyle and Diane tried to kill him. 6 years we wouldn't have had if I'd called the police immediately instead of building an airtight case. 6 years of Sunday dinners and walks in the park and conversations about everything we'd almost lost. We made every single moment count. Kyle Martinez is currently serving year 7 of his 15-year sentence at Menard Correctional Center. He'll be eligible for parole in 2031. I've already written a statement opposing his release. Diane Kowalski will likely die in Logan Correctional Center. With 35 years and no parole possibility, she won't see freedom again. The 3 families she destroyed before targeting mine finally got justice. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever trusted someone who is systematically destroying you, know this. Trust your instincts. That uncomfortable feeling I ignored when Kyle was too helpful, too perfect, too eager to take over Dad's care? That voice in my head saying something wasn't right? I should have listened. Your gut knows things your brain hasn't figured out yet. Listen to it. The night I found Kyle's burner phone, I had a choice. Call the police immediately and hope they could build a case, or use my training to build something they couldn't escape. I chose strategy over emotion. Patience over rage. Evidence over revenge. That IT worked because I stayed cold. Clinical. Focused on the goal instead of the hurt. Subscribe if you believe in fighting for the people you love, no matter what it takes. Type family first in the comments if you'd do anything to protect your loved ones. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that justice is possible, even against calculated predators who've perfected their system. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Your support means everything to this community we're building. Before I go, remember this. Predators count on shame, keeping victims quiet. They count on embarrassment, preventing people from coming forward. They count on you being too hurt to fight back. Don't give them that power. Fight back. Document everything. Trust the right people. Use every resource available. And when 0.6 years later, I stood in Holy Name Cathedral delivering my father's eulogy. Thomas Bennett had passed peacefully 3 days earlier, surrounded by family. The cancer had returned. Cancer always finds a way, but this time he'd fought it on his own terms, with people who loved him, without poison accelerating his decline. He was 68 years old. He'd beaten stage for pancreatic cancer twice, defying every statistic. He'd walked me down the aisle at my wedding to Daniel. He'd held his first grandchild, my daughter Emma. named after my mother. 6 months before he died, he'd lived to see me and make senior partner at Morrison and Associates, the youngest in the firm's history. He'd watched me testify before Congress on elder fraud prevention. He'd been there for every victory, every milestone, every moment we'd almost lost. The cathedral was packed. Morrison and Associates sent everyone. All 37 attorneys, paralegals, even the reception staff. Victoria sat in the front row, dignified in black, tears streaming down her face. She and Dad had developed an unlikely friendship after everything, bonded by their shared role in saving my life. Daniel held Emma while I approached the pulpit. My daughter was 14 months old. Dad's green eyes, his real green eyes, the ones I'd inherited looking around the cathedral with innocent curiosity. And why Father was a builder. I began, my voice steady despite the grief, threatening to break through. For 40 years, he built skyscrapers throughout Chicago, structures that would stand for generations, that would withstand storms and stress and time. He approached everything that Way built to last, built with integrity, built to protect the people inside. That I looked out at the crowd, at the construction workers who'd worked with Dad decades ago, still showing up to honor one of their own, at the neighbors from Hyde Park who'd watched him recover, cheered his remission, mourned his eventual decline, at the families I'd helped over the past 6 years, people who'd faced similar predators, and one because I'd shown them it was possible. 6 years ago, someone tried to destroy what my father built, tried to steal his life, his legacy, his love for his family. They came so close to succeeding. I paused, gathering strength. But they underestimated something. They underestimated the foundation he'd built, the strength he'd passed on to me, the refusal to accept defeat that defined his entire life. Victoria stood when I finished, approaching the pulpit for her turn to speak. She'd asked to say a few words, something she rarely did outside of courtrooms. Thomas Bennett raised a warrior, she said simply. He raised a woman who would fight impossible odds to protect the people she loved. He raised someone who turned grief into strategy, pain into evidence, rage into justice. That's his legacy, not the buildings he constructed, but the daughter he built. After the service, after the burial at Graceland Cemetery where Mom was laid to rest, after the reception where stories about Dad flowed as freely as tears, I found myself alone at his grave, fresh dirt, flowers everywhere. The headstone simple, Thomas Bennett, 1957 to 2025. Beloved father, builder, fighter. I knelt down, my hand on the cool marble. We won, Dad. They didn't break us. They tried, but we were stronger than they thought. Emma made a sound from where Daniel held her nearby, and I smiled through tears. You got to meet her. That's what matters. You held your granddaughter. You saw me happy, successful, loved by someone real. You won every battle that mattered. Daniel approached quietly, handed me a tissue. He'd been there for all of it, the recovery, the trials, the fear that Dad wouldn't make it, the joy when he did. He'd earned his place in this family through patience and genuine care. Time to go, he asked, gently. One more minute. I looked at the grave, remembering the man who'd raised me alone, who'd worked double shifts so I could go to college, who'd celebrated every achievement like it was his own, who'd fought stage for cancer twice because he refused to let criminals win. Dad, I love you. Dad, I whispered. Thank you for teaching me to fight. We walked back toward the car, Emma babbling happily, unaware of the significance of the day. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with notifications, probably condolences, probably work emails that couldn't wait even for a funeral. But there was one email that caught my attention, from the Illinois State Bar Association. Subject: 2025 Elder Law Advocacy Award. I opened it, reading as we walked. MS. Bennett, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as this year's recipient of the Elder Law Advocacy Award for your groundbreaking work in estate fraud prevention and your instrumental role in reforming inheritance law protections. Dad would have been proud. I'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to us and turned it into a career protecting other families. Every case I won, Every predator I stopped, every family I saved that was his legacy to. That a text came through from Victoria. Board meeting Tuesday. We're discussing your full partnership papers. Thomas would be thrilled. Full partner at 34. Youngest in the firm's 87-year history. Built on merit, on cases won, on families saved that I looked back one more time at Dad's grave. The Chicago skyline rose in the distance, buildings he'd helped construct. Structures that would outlast all of us that we won. I said again, to the wind, to the city, to the memory of a man who'd taught me that sometimes the strongest structure you can build is the refusal to accept defeat. Then I turned toward the future, toward my husband, my daughter, my career, my purpose, toward everything Dad had fought to give me, toward the life they couldn't steal. Diane Kowalski remains incarcerated at Logan Correctional Center, serving 35 years without parole. Kyle Martinez is eligible for parole in 2031. Rachel Bennett became the youngest senior partner at Morrison & Associates in 2024, specializing in elder fraud prevention and estate law. She has helped prosecute 47 similar cases, recovering over $23 million for affected families. Marcus Wong served 4 years of his 6-year sentence and was released in 2028. He now works with law enforcement identifying document forgery operations. Thomas Bennett's estate was protected in full. His legacy includes not only the buildings he constructed throughout Chicago, but the legal reforms his daughter championed in his name. Your story matters. Your fight matters. You matter that if someone you love is being targeted, if something feels wrong, if your instincts are screaming warnings you're trying to ignore, listen. Document everything. Trust the right people. Fight back with every resource you have. Predators count on silence. They count on shame. They count on victims being too broken to organize resistance. Prove them wrong. This is Alice, reminding you that revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about construction, building a case so strong, gathering evidence so comprehensive, fighting so strategically that justice becomes inevitable. Why Father taught me to build things that last. I built a case that will protect families for generations. What will you build?